when babies are in, you know, in distress. Their heart, their brain, their adrenals, yeah? So these babies are already not perfusing well for growth and development, so their lungs are going to be short. So they're going to have a very difficult time in trying to maintain life. Short-term morbidity is also, growth restricted infants that are also, with survival figures of less than 50% for gestations less than 28 weeks. Short-term morbidity is also increased in growth restricted infants with higher risks of neonatal complications such as birth hypoxia. And when combined with prematurity, increased risk of respiratory distress syndrome, necrotizing enterocolitis, retinopathy of prematurity, infection, and hypoglycemia. Evidence is also accumulating to suggest that there are long-term metabolic consequences of fetal growth restriction, such as an increased risk of insulin resistance, cardiovascular complications, and psychiatric disorders.
Essentially, you think of a baby that's got a chronic disease.
Yep.
Long term.
Right, and it doesn't just end at birth. If it's got interuterine growth restriction, it's obviously had developmental anatomically and physiologically it's been restricted, which means all of those organs that were hypoperfused are not going to function how they should have functioned if it was a normal baby.
If it's ended to grow.
Huh?
When you get the self-ended to grow.
Exactly.
What's the difference between the IUGR and an SGA?
So for gestational
so you can
age.
have a small for gestational baby that's not necessarily IUGR.
So Oscar was a small for gestational age because he was a tiny baby,
Just
but he was
small.
I just grow small babies to
It's
start
just
with.
small. Yeah.
But he had no growth restriction. I had great, there was no issue whatsoever. But Georgie was growth restricted because at 34 weeks and 7 weeks, I had the same measurement. So she stopped growing. Whereas Oscar consistently grew.
Okay.
He was just small. So he was third percentile the whole way through.
Yeah.
But Georgie went she went 15, 20, and then went third. So her chart looked like that.
So she fell off the perch.
She fell off the perch.
Okay.
And you can have an SGA baby that doesn't have IUGR, but IUGR babies are all small for gestational age.
Okay.
I'm having a fish dinner. Probably. I'm going. Keep going.
They come back.
I'm going to
You're
get
going to
fish.
pick up the fish.
I'm going to get fish. Someone's rang me to say, you're having fish for dinner. I'm going to get coral trout.
Where from?
Salem.
Are you coming back?
Oh, she caught it for you.
Are you coming back?
Oh, yes. I'm starting to stretch the friendship with my husband.
Then don't come back. Take this stuff.
She kind of feels like she needs to look it up.
No, I'm enjoying it, but I feel okay with this.
Well, I just think if we keep going through this, and when you come back, we'll just sit down and smash through some Ctgs.
If that's alright.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I feel comfortable with this stuff.
Okay.
Would you want us to relocate to your house?
Coral, trout, fresh and all.
No, I'm not sharing that much. Depends on how many there are.
She thought about it.
So I'm thinking, how are you guys on your growth restriction? Because that's the underpinning. What we just came up with there, that underpins all of it. So it's caused by a variety of different disease processes,
Yeah.
but that's what causes it. That's what happens.
Yeah.
So those disease processes cause the baby not to get enough
Oh,
blood.
always
End
just-
of the day.
Whether it's hypotension, hypertension, whether it's smoking, anemia, it doesn't matter what the cause is, that's what happens inside the baby.
Because I always think of things in lay terms in my head. It's
Yeah.
always been they didn't get enough blood to get enough nutrients and oxygen to grow properly.
And it all goes back to that cellular respiration, which is the glucose plus oxygen leads to ATP. Yeah? And it's just thinking about, okay, if it's smoking, then they're getting all of these different toxins from cigarette smoke, and that's invading the capacity for oxygen uptake. If it's anemia, they might not have enough hemoglobin, or they don't have enough iron for the hemoglobin to bind. Okay, or if it's going to be moderate or severe or persistent asthma, the mum has reduced oxygen intake, so that means the baby's going to get reduced oxygen
How
intake.
severe are we talking when we talk anemia?
When we're talking,
Anemia.
any anemia can cause,
I know, because my understanding was that a baby always just took what it needed.
yeah, so that's why we look at our iron stores.
Yeah.
That's why we don't look at so much maternal iron per se, we look at the iron stores, because yeah, the baby will take what it needs, but if mum's stores are low, that means the baby can't
Got none to
possibly
take.
get what it needs. So So that's the women who end up with iron infusion. So those women who have like a persistent anemia of their iron stores mean that those babies. So all of these things and maternal diseases and stuff, it all leads to the same place. So IUGR is IUGR, that doesn't change, just there's 1,000 different causes. So what you need to be able to understand from me talking is that part that we were just talking about. So if everyone's okay with that, we'll just fly through those causes. We just talked about that.
So there was something there about the difference, I think.
Yeah, that's what we just talked about.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it's in your notes as well. But I think that Katrina probably explained that
yeah.
reasonably well. And we know why it's IUGR.
Yeah.
Where are you?
So once intrinsic fetal abnormalities have been excluded, placental insufficiency becomes presumptive diagnosis and ongoing monitoring is recommended. Surveillance of the small for gestational age fetus incorporates multiple tests of fetal well-being, including fetal Dopplers, amniotic fluid, volume assessment, Ctg, fetal movements, and biophysical profiles. So just saying, if there's no cause, like with the IUGR baby, we can see that there's a cause. So we could do the cerebral artery Doppler and see that it's hyperperfused, or you know, we can see that there's something wrong with the villi between the placenta and the fetus. But if you've done all of that and you can't find anything, then it's a small for gestational age baby, and we just keep an eye on fetal well-being. We still continue to do the Dopplers in case that goes from being a small for gestational age baby to a baby who's IUGR and compromised. So it's saying that we don't just ignore it because we've identified it's just SGA. We just
So small for gestational age is just, you know, just that small baby.
yeah.
But IUGR is something's restricting its growth. That's how I think of it.
Sounds alright. Vaginal delivery can be considered for selected cases of SGA or add-on new term when the fetal wellbeing parameters are reassuring and the fetus is thought to be constitutionally rather than pathologically small. So that's just moving along from, we've decided that it is SGA, we have kept an eye on it, and now we're deciding about mode of birth, and you know, is it, you know, does an SGA baby need to be a caesarean section?
Yeah.
And that's what they're saying, no. So if everything is okay and we haven't found anything that's pathological in all of those studies that we've done, then it's just a small baby. So it should, just because it's small, it's that all of those things are telling you that it's well.
Yes.
It's a small well baby, so it should go through labour just like any other baby.
Small,
Yeah.
Not pathological.
Yeah, so it should just go through labour like any other baby.
Cool.
However, SGA babies are more likely to have fetal distress during labour, with up to 1 in 3 women requiring a caesarean section if their fetus had an abdominal circumference measurement at or below the 5th centile, which is really quite
High.
Just making all my alarm bells for that Rebecca Hoskins go off again.
absolutely.
Well, Taria Pearson also, she's got, they were worried about her abdominal circumference.
Yes.
The babies.
So have the babies, yeah. So have a look at what that was. So that'll be
Yeah.
interesting to see which centile it's
It's
in.
like 9%.
So we're talking about the 5th centile.
Yeah.
So that's not, like when you think about it in proportion of how many SGA babies there may be, we're only looking at the ones with that abdominal circumference in that 5th centile. It's not saying that all babies are going to have that necessarily lower abdominal circumference. Data from retrospective studies suggests that caesarean section might confer some advantage in preterm babies with growth restriction. However, there are no RCTs to guide clinicians on the route of delivery of the very preterm growth restricted baby. In practice, if a fetus is considered compromised enough to warrant elective preterm delivery at less than 34 weeks, subjecting it to the stress and delay of labour must be carefully considered. These preterm babies must be delivered in an appropriate centre with neonatal intensive care facilities and a skilled resuscitator present at birth, which is why our babies go to Townsville, not to Cairns. Okay, so under 34 weeks, our babies all go to Townsville because Cairns don't have a NICU. So we need to make sure that that's where they're going.
And how many weeks? Sorry.
34.
34, yeah.
So
That's only
Cairns-
that's only restricted.
Cairns, well no, any babies under 34 weeks go to Townsville. You meant to send the mums to Townsville, not to Cairns.
I'm pretty sure we did it under 30.
Yeah, you should be, because there's special care nursery levels SCSCF
I'm
is
just thinking,
34 weeks.
I'm pretty sure it's only under
Yeah.
30.
I remember stuff from a little
And I can't share because she's already told Gemma. Sorry. I have to share with Gemma.
I'll share it. Alright, so CTGs. Now we can go through that later because we have been through this before, like the PowerPoint that I made for you three, and we went through that over there, was all about this stuff, looking at what the parameters are, what they should be, and taking that systematic approach to interpreting a CTG. So I think if we go through some CTGs with Katrina who wasn't there that day and look at those, and I think the way that we'll do it today, there's 10 CTGs there, and I think I'll get you all to do the whole 10, and then we'll bring each up for discussion. Yeah. Do them independently, and then bring it up for discussion. Because it would like it would be if you're in an exam.
Sounds good to me, sister.
Most disruptive student.
So what we've decided, Katrina, we just finished SGA versus IUGR.
Yeah.
So this is all about the things about the CTG. So
Yep.
I've given you a list of 10 CTGs there. So everyone's going to sit down and systematically review those and give me what you think your outcome is, and then we'll take those back to the board for discussion. And there's a ruler there if you want one. I'm a ruler queen when it comes.
Can we do one together? Just so,
We can do the first one together.
just to get the feel of how everyone.
Just so you remark.
Yep.
What did you say?
She said, "Fuck off."
So
What I'm saying.
if we just have a look at the first one.
Yep.
So what we were saying, Katrina, is that we did a session, a 4-hour session or 3-hour session, whatever, a couple of weeks ago, and we looked at utilising a systematic approach to reading
Yes,
the CTG.
Yeah.
So what we were doing was writing this on our CTG. So the first thing we need to identify is the baseline rate.
Yep.
Okay, so we can only identify a baseline rate in between a contraction. You can't get a baseline rate on a contraction. So you need to look at your ruler, and the baseline rate is averaged. You know, so as long as you haven't got a rising baseline, if sometimes you've got 130, sometimes you've got 140, and you can measure that across your CTGs, then your baseline rate is 135. So I
Now
draw.
with the RANSCOG exam,
Yep.
do we have to give one number, or can we give a range like of 135 to 140? Or
Because
do you have to
always
be?
do.
Are they all multiple choice?
They're all multiple choice.
So they-
So
Oh,
if
okay.
you-
Right.
it'll give you
Alright.
an option.
So it'd be obvious which one to
Yeah.
pick.
So if they did ask, if they just said, if let's say they had a choice of 130 to 135, and then they had another answer that was 135, what I would do is I would draw my lines. I would write, oh, that says 135, that says 140, that says 130, and then I would average out how many lines I drew across my CTG between my contractions. But I don't recall having to do that in that exam. So the first thing we need to do is develop a baseline rate, and that is in between contractions.
Q, Susie Q. You don't love her.
I do, but I'll just bring it back on you.
So are we doing this week?
Yeah, so Katrina, we're doing this first one just together.
Okay.
So what do we think of our baseline rate?
I did because I always do. I did 135 to 145.
Yep.
So what's your average? If it's one, if you've got a B of 10.
140.
Okay.
I like having it. It shows me it's got some variability.
But that's not what I'm asking for. I'm just asking you for a baseline rate.
Yes. it's got a-
Alright, so then after that we want to look at accelerations. Now remembering that it's two accelerations, and it's greater than 15 beats for greater than 15 seconds. In an intrapartum trace, if you don't have accelerations, that's okay. But on an antepartum trace, you have to have at least 2 accelerations on your trace. So if you have said
Sorry,
that
say that again.
on an intrapartum one, you don't have to have accelerations.
Right.
So if you have decided that your baseline heart rate is 140,